Hi, folks. Good evening. How are you today? Hope you're having a great time. Yeah, welcome to the show Just Banter on from oradio.com. My name, as usual, is Habib Eniola, and tonight we're going to be having an open panel discussion. There's a lot going on around the world right now. Everybody is worried about one thing or the other. Either you're worried about COVID-19, or you're worried about the racism issues or the protests going on around the world. You're worried about the economic situation, what's going to happen. There's just a lot everywhere, and everybody's wondering what's next. Now, the funny thing is, nobody ever thought that, protests could stop the ongoing fears around the pandemic. And for strange reasons, so many people are out and doing things just as if everything was normal. But it's just nothing normal about what's going on right now. It's a miracle that that so many people haven't died, even though there's been an escalation from what we have been hearing about the pandemic, especially in the United States. I think it's topping about 2 million now. Now, if you're watching this and you'd like to be a guest on the show, we're going to put a number on the screen that you could send a message to, or you could just send us a message via Facebook Messenger or on YouTube, and we will be glad to have you, in on the show. But as usual, you could always send your comments, and we'll put your comment on the screen so that viewers could actually see it, and the panelists will be able to answer your questions. We have quite a few people on the panel tonight, and we'll bring them on shortly after this message. Hi, and thanks for being with us tonight. Tonight we're gonna be having an open session, like I said earlier on. And if you want to join us, you can send us a message either on Facebook Messenger or YouTube. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce the first guests that are on the show, and the first person's name is Jawad Iginla, and Jawad is a good friend of the station. Hello, Jawad. How are you today?
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, and also we have an old guest, Olumide Abdul Karim. Olumide, how are you today? Olumide, can you hear us? Hello, Olumide. We don't have your audio. What's going on? Olumide's audio seems to be giving him a challenge. One second there, Olu. So, Jawad, while Olumide is trying to sort out his microphone, we can keep the discussion. We can keep the discussion going on. So, I was just mentioning, a few minutes ago that there's so much, for people to worry about,
Okay.
right now. And
Okay.
it's becoming, very worrisome that you have so many issues going on all at the same time. You have the issue of the protests in the United States. You have COVID-19. You have the economic situation. There's a lot of panic, Okay, I think we have more guests. Olumide is back, but Olumide.
I'm back now.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you now. Yes,
I'm
loud
clear.
and clear.
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yes. So
Welcome
we also
back.
have, we also have one more guest that has joined us, and her name
Thank you,
is
Jawad.
Rennie Alice. Hello, Rennie Alice. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Well, fantastic. Thank you.
Great.
So, Jawad, listening, we are with you.
Okay, so the question posed was the troubles all stacked into one. Now you have COVID-19, you have the economic problems, and then you have the race realization riot in the United States. Okay, taking them one at a time. With COVID-19,
Yeah.
I think it was a problem that was foreseen, but unfortunately, our governments will give us the impression that it was something that could not be planned for. And we all know where that scheme comes from, because the moment you underplay something and all of a sudden it shoots beyond your expectation, you have to then try and play catch up. So catch up has been shocking. Shocking is an understatement, if you were to say. In the UK here,
Yes.
the thing has been to rally around the NHS, to make NHS the stalwart as our bulwark against the COVID-19, and rally the country around it. But meanwhile, you have the political situation on the side, which was one of incompetence. But then, Brits being what they are, we sort of rally around the NHS, and we forgot the issue of incompetence for a while.
Yeah.
But the more the debts increased, it became a point of saying, "Oh, what's going on here? Surely there must be a plan in place." Then we had to go back to the government, and only for us to find out the government was actually, didn't really know what to do. So it was playing catch up. It was reactionary rather than being proactive. So, and then to cap matters, then you have the economics.
Yes.
So because it's an unplanned situation, there is nothing in the economic books that will have planned for that foreseeing this kind of situation coming. So again, it was playing catch up. Let's throw money at the problem. But if you look to the Nordic countries, places like Denmark, places like Sweden, what they did was they were quite innovative in the sense that they said, okay, fine, the country will shut down. But whilst the country shut down, because we are more of a socialist economy, what we'll do is we'll give you money, your year's wages, to stay at home.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
As long as this thing plays out, we would look out, work on the vaccine, and then the moment the vaccine kicks in, we'll try and roll back the closing of the country. Whereas the Western countries, i.e. the United States and Britain, has been one of, we can be stoic about it, and then, whatever happens, we'll rally the troops, as it were, and try and play, what's the word here? Try and play Django.
Django.
Yeah, exactly. Try and play Django, superhero kind of guy, and we're suffering for it, and we will suffer for it, because right now we've played with a quarter of our GDP for this year. So now, with that out of you've paid a better part of about 35 trillion. So where's the money coming from?
35 trillion.
Yeah. So where's the money coming from? So sorry, 35 billion. So
35 billion. Yeah.
35 billion.
That sounds more like it.
Yeah. So you paid 35 billion upfront. Now, for a country that is supposed to be conservative in terms of expenditure, that is quite an astronomical sum to the point where now you have everybody scratching their head as to how do we pay this back, because I'll hack back to just 2000 and the tail end of 2019 when we had the election. The idea was when the other party were musing with the idea of, doing everything on a grand scale, everybody was like, how do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? How do we pay for it? All of a sudden, we've thrown money at a problem now.
Yeah.
And then scratching our head as to, we did ask the question, but let's pretend as if nobody noticed. But then, of course, the economists will. And then they've done that. And then the unfortunate happened on May 25 with George. That then, that was totally unseen. They totally unplanned for. Then all of a sudden, establishment doesn't know what to do, because we've often done this. As long as the problem is not on a grand scale, we'll pretend as if we've not seen it.
So there's a problem generally everywhere. Basically, that's what this means, because Olumide is talking from Lagos, Nigeria. Olumide, there seems to be a pattern here where, yes, quite all right. It's a pandemic. Nobody expected it. Nobody knew there could be anything on this scale at any point in time. It took everybody unawares. It's a shocker. But it seems that the difference, between the United Kingdom, where Jawad is speaking from, and Nigeria right now, from what he has just said so far, is process. What is your take on that? Why do you think, there's so many similarities?
First of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you.
I'll first touch a bit on what Jawad said as regards the UK before I come back to Nigeria.
Yeah.
As regards the Nordic, that's the countries in Northern Europe, Norway, Finland, and if you compare them with the UK is it's an international hub. It's a business hub. The traffic and the business that goes on in the UK, you can't compare in population-wise, economic-wise, business-wise, and any other matter. You can't compare them with those states.
Yeah.
So the way, it was easier for them, to handle, the crisis in their states as a socialist entity than it was for the UK. That's one. Then two, on the issue of they had to throw money at it. The reason why they threw so much money at it was because if you don't make any provisions and tell the people to stay at home, they were not going to answer you. There was no way. This has never happened before.
True.
So if you're going to tell everybody stay at home, and I'm not going to start throwing at them to first of all sit down at home, so we'll provide for you. So I think that was the reason why the government approached it like that. But coming back to my jurisdiction, initially we started our lockdown on the 23rd of March.
Yeah.
And as of then, the cases in Nigeria were very, very far, they were far between. As of the past 2 or 3 months, on an average, we'll be doing between 60 and 70, a day. But now it's gone up a bit. And it's because a lot of my friends always tell me that how can you say this, because you guys don't have any statistics? How do you know how many people are falling ill? How do you know how many people are dying? How are you sure the accurate the reports you're getting from NCDC is correct? And how about those who are not reporting to the isolation centers?
Yes.
And I tell them this: you hide a lot of things.
Sound issues.
Yeah, I think Lumide had some sound issues there. So, but Jawad, now a guest has said something. One of our guests, her name is Folake.
Might be wrong.
Okay, I think
The
Lumide is
data
coming
might
back.
be wrong. The information about
Olumide is having technical issues. So now, a guest has said, population density is also higher in the UK, and I'm sure her comment is as regards, the Nordic countries and their approach to handling the situation of the the pandemic and all that's that's around it. Now, that in itself is a massive issue, considering that you have 70 million, a population of 70 million in the UK, as compared to the Nordic countries. Putting all the population of all the Nordic countries together.
Folake has supported my
yes.
Folake Betty Oyewa.
Yes.
Supported my
your line of thought.
Your line of thought,
my
yes.
That the population of the UK.
Yes, so Jawad, Olumide, we can hear you. Jawad, is the population a factor?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the UK has, let's put it on this basis. The UK knows where literally everyone is. I mean, the NHS has a large database. Yeah?
Yes.
So, and then you also have what is called national insurance. So you literally know where everybody is. Now, the thing is, letters went out to people who were considered at-risk patients.
Okay.
Once the pandemic kicked in. So if you have that kind of reach, one will expect that you will have a contingency plan in place.
Yeah.
So I don't think that idea of the amount of people is the issue. I think it was one of not having a plan to go to. And the reason I say this is prior to the pandemic, I think it was 2 years ago, they actually had a test run of what might happen in the event of a pandemic.
Yeah.
Guess what happened to that plan? That plan was scrapped. So
who scrapped it? Which government scrapped it?
Theresa May's government scrapped it.
Okay, all right.
So David Cameron created, they did a pandemic test case.
All right.
They shut down the entire city of London for a day. So just to show, if this happens, this is how we react. What would happen in the event of this? How would we get to move from side to side? That kind of thing. So they did everything, and they upscaled it. Then did another part of London. Just sort of upscaling. But they had like a plan in place. So what then happened is, one will have expected that once that situation arrives, the first point of call would be that plan on the shelf.
Yeah.
But that plan was ignored. Why? That's the question we should ask. So I don't think, which is one of the reasons why I will concede with regards to their size of population in comparison to the Nordic countries. But when it comes to planning, if you plan properly, regardless of number, you will hit any target. So I don't think the issue of planning.
Even in a pandemic, because like I said, a pandemic is not. There's no amount of planning.
Yeah.
That can adequately fill in. For a pandemic.
I will say.
Yes, Olumide.
Go on.
Hello, Habib.
Yes, Olumide, we can hear you.
Yeah, what was the? I lost you there for a second. The question.
Yes, no. I was saying, that in the case of a pandemic, can any government truly be prepared for a pandemic, regardless of where it is in the world?
I believe so. If you check out a lot of, you cannot be 100% ready, but you can be at least up to an extent be prepared to handle it.
Yes.
It's not. Yes, this is a pandemic, but viruses there are plans. I mean, the relationship, the United States had with China,
Yeah.
and all the research, that over the years that
So the Nigerian end of things, they think that they can stop our guests from coming on the show. That's not true. It's not going to happen. We are going to keep going at it, and we are going to keep working on making these things work for us, as a people. It's unfortunate that this type of stuff, happens, that, you have such a large economy and so many things are missing in the scheme of things, but that's fine. So Jawad,
Yes.
now for the UK, they have the NHS. The NHS has been regarded as one of the best, medical health services providers in the world.
Okay.
Every government since, I can't remember who, every single one of them, has always used the NHS as a yardstick.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of elections, they've always spoken about the NHS. There's always been, a point of focus every single time.
Okay.
Nobody would have expected that the NHS could be so overwhelmed to handle the pandemic.
Okay.
Nobody. But unfortunately, that has happened. Is it a case of there's been a systemic, issue there existing prior to the pandemic, or what exactly do you think happened there?
Okay, with the NHS, since the introduction of what's it called? Since the introduction of private finance initiative,
Yes.
where you have the corporate bodies come in, build hospitals, manage hospitals, and what have you, there has been a steady stream of these investments in the NHS. And then it's not helped by the fact that you then have layers and layers and layers of administration added to the running of this, to the running of the NHS. So what then happened was, you had, when this trouble then happened, the years and years of disinvestment came to a fall. So it was a question of, you've taken out of the system, you've taken out of the system, you're taking out of the system. Eventually, when you then need the system, there was nothing to go to. So it was bare bones. I mean, I'm not here. Usually you would go to your GP.
Yes.
If you had an ailment that needs a referral to the hospitals, you will get a referral within 3 days. Now, the referrals 6 months, 8 months, if you're lucky. It's not because the hospitals are no longer there, but it's a question of things are now being rationed in a place where previously you had 4 doctors on call. You now have 2 doctors, and the doctors are also doing private practice on their own. So it's a question of, because the salary has not been able to keep up with the private sector. So the doctors are having to go out to sort of outsource themselves, whereas still keeping their jobs in the NHS. So if they call in sick, there's nothing to stop them going out to do side job. I mean, that's a personal thing. But organization-wise, there's been too much of bureaucracy to the point where medicine is no longer medicine. So what you now have is, you have corporate medicine. So you have a body that decides what sort of drugs we buy. So it's not about the human being, it's about the cost effectiveness of buying the drugs.
Yeah.
So wherein drugs that are vital for, I mean, if you had an ailment, nobody can tell you what the cost of that drug should be.
Yes.
But then you had a board that decided, oh, this drugs is too expensive, we don't need this one. We're going for only this one. So what happens if you need that drug, and so what happens if you need a drug you don't have to go back to? So in the event of, if you upscale it to the NHS, there was no fallback plan as to what do we do in the event of a massive failure, which this was. It was a massive failure of the system. So what the government resorted to was just make heroes of the NHS workers. Clap for them every Thursday. Exactly.
That's celebrated.
Exactly.
Well,
can you imagine?
From what we can see on the screen here,
Yeah.
Folake Oyewa said again, she said, most Western countries have a semi-plan due to their past experiences, e.g. swine flu, H5N1 flu, and all that. Okay. So I think she's also, saying that none of them had a holistic plan.
Yeah.
If I may support that, Habib.
Yes, go ahead. Olu.
Lagos State also had a pre-plan because of the experience of the Ebola crisis a couple of years ago, and that was why we were able to. The government was able to move in swift, build their centers and gather up all the necessary, the medical help, that was needed. The United Nations also, the World Health Organization, for the swift move, that Lagos State did as regards.
Do you think that was as a result of? Do you think that was as a result of Ebola? Do you think that was as a result of Ebola?
It was a result of the past experience.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a result of the past experience that the former governor, Raji Shola, when the Ebola crisis broke out. If you remember, we don't have our health system is not as comprehensive as that of the UK. So and we lack in so many areas. So it was necessary for us to be able to to try and put a check on it. It was necessary that those steps were taken. I would say I don't know the medical reasons why the virus has not been as bad as it has been in Europe. However, there's been a recent spike in the last week or so, and there's been an increase in death rate in Nigeria.
But are they doing enough tests, Olumide? Because it doesn't seem like the figures that come out of Nigeria are accurate at all. So for something that is, has been said to spread in such a weird manner, is it not amazing that in a state like Kogi, they said they have only one, and the person that's, has been diagnosed to have the infection actually came from Abuja? Just one person.
Some of those, some of those statements, they are rather embarrassing. But the truth of the fact is that they are actually, because I don't know what to say. If the governor of the state is denying that they have no infections, and as I said, anytime there's a statement like this, what you can always do is check the mortuary, how many dead bodies are coming in, because no matter what is happening, if anybody dies, they must be dropped in the mortuary. So even if statistics are wrong or information is wrong, whatever happens, you can always balance it out by the amount of their bodies that are coming in. So as I said, it's not been as bad as it's been in Europe and the US and South America. I don't know the medical reasons why, but
could that be as a result of the? Could that be as a result of the? Could that be as a result of the weather? Could that be as a result of the weather? Because there have been speculations that at certain temperatures, the rate of infection is much lower. So I don't know, Jawad, have you heard anything like that? Is there any evidence?
I'm not much of a medical expert, but if you're looking at, I won't go with the weather. I won't go with the weather angle. And reason is, if you look at North America, which has very vast arrays of time zones and weathers, you've noticed that the northern part of the country where it's pretty cold, they don't have it as much as the lower side. Florida now is topping the charts. Texas,
Oh, wow.
Texas is
Okay.
closely following. So if we're going by the weather angle, Texas at this moment in time is about 30, 35 degrees. So I think that argument is kicked to the curb immediately. I would say, if I were to borrow the hub idea, is go on. People tend to move around a lot in most of these Western countries, because either for business, pleasure, what have you.
Yeah.
In situations where movement is pick up your bag or your car keys, or you get on a plane or get on a train, and that kind of movement happens, it's difficult to track. I mean, if you were to look at a place like maybe Nigeria, or I've not been there a while, but traveling is not as expansive as we tend to do it. If you look at the sky scanner just a bit, just look at Sky Scanner, you see the amount of flights that are in the air. So
Yeah,
imagine the
but
average.
I beg to disagree with you there, Jawad. Olumide, the amount of traffic that goes in and out of Lagos, it's some data that I read a long while ago. There's an average of 2 people coming into Lagos every second. Every second, Olumide. So if you have that amount of traffic, Olumide, shouldn't you have a much, much higher rate of infection?
Sorry, I lost you there. All I heard was traffic. Lost you a bit. The
Okay,
higher traffic.
So what he said was,
what did I be?
Surely
Yeah,
there should be a correlation
with with what Jawad has just said in terms of the amount of traffic all over the United States, and that being, partly responsible for the amount of infection. For a state like Lagos, that we have seen some data that says that there's an average of 2 people coming into Lagos every second. Shouldn't there be a higher rate of infection in Lagos as opposed to what you presently have?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm hearing you well. I have a lot of static on my line, but I think you see the population of Lagos and the traffic.
Yes.
Well, before I go into that, what I find very strange is that the treatment that is being given out to all the people in the isolation centers, they are malaria based. And if they are malaria based, the average Nigerian has malaria, the parasite in their system.
Oh, true.
I don't know if this has to do with anything, or as I said, I'm not a medical, but if you look at all the people going into the isolation centers are being treated, with malaria drugs and drugs, that will boost their immunity.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you can cross the lines or dot the I's, it seems it's malaria. They are being treated for. So I don't know why it's and I won't say it's because of the weather too, because it's rainy season. It's not as hot as it used to be, later on the year, later on in the year. So I really don't know why it's very low here in Africa, but especially around health here. But the treatment they're giving is nothing new. It's just malaria drugs and other things with
other stuff. Yeah. So because there's been a lot of talk around the hydroxychloroquine, and we don't know what the truth is. We don't have any medical.
I'm not sure I'm going to answer because I couldn't hear you very well. I think.
No, well, you've done fine. You've done fine. You did answer, as much as possible. Yeah. So we're gonna take a very short break, and right after this break, we're gonna be talking about another, pandemic, quote and unquote, and that has to do with the issue of racism and what is going on all over the world, the protests and all of that. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this. Hi, folks. Oh, what's happened to my screen? Hi, everyone. I don't know if you can hear. Hi, folks. Sorry about that. We don't know what happened there. There seems to have been a small technical glitch. So, hi, folks. Sorry about that. We don't know what happened there. There seems to have been a small technical glitch. So, hi, folks. Sorry about that. We don't know what happened there. There seems to have been a small technical glitch. Hello. Jawad, sorry.
Yes, no worries.
You know what I'm Jawad, I'm sorry. No
Yeah.
worries. We had such a technical glitch, but it's fine. So, before the break, no worries. We had such a technical glitch, but it's fine. So, before the break, no worries. We had such a technical. Sorry. Yes, I have been sorted. So, sorry. Before the break, we were talking about
Lagos.
racism,
Okay.
and everywhere has gone crazy right now. Everybody is talking, everybody's doing protests all over the world. Now, what I find strange is this. You have an epidemic of you have rape cases of epidemic proportion in Nigeria. You have it in South Africa. You have it in Uganda. You have it in Zimbabwe. There have been no protests about stuff like that. What we have protests about
is Black Lives Matter. Yes, we know that racism is a major issue all over the world. We know it is a challenge for everybody. But what seems, really weird about it is that these are issues that should have been talked about at a massive scale, way before things got. Now, unfortunately, it's in the United States that this has come up.
Okay.
Whereas you have worse cases of racism in countries like Argentina. You have in Venezuela. These are countries where Black people, as far as they're concerned, should not even exist in the first place.
Okay.
Okay? And now there's protests coming out of the United States where you've seen really successful people coming out of the United States who are Black people. Why is it happening now? And the trigger, George Floyd. George Floyd is not somebody that anybody would have been able to cause this type of ruckus. Was it just the trigger? I'll start with you, Olumide, but I'll also introduce somebody new into the studio. Her name is Rennie Alice. Hello, Rennie Alice.
Okay. First of all, just before the issue of George Floyd, there had been a lockdown worldwide for about a month or 2 or 6 weeks. The frustration of not being able to move around, do any other thing, attend your jobs, your events, your activities, and all that. The frustration of that had been building up for a while. George Floyd was just the trigger that brought everybody out of where they were hiding and where they were not allowed to go out, and where there are no jobs, and it just made matters worse. Now, it's been happening in the United States for over, 200 years, or should we go back to way back, during slavery?
Oh yes,
much more.
Yeah,
and we all know the story of Tulsa, the Black Wall Street, how African Americans, and you see, it's difficult if you have never lived in America, and it'll be difficult to understand where their pain is from. It's just like the way it is in South Africa. You don't understand where the pain is from unless you've been in the system or you're a part of the system. It's not for you. Even if you're a second generation American, you cannot feel what they have been through. For example, in South Africa, on the average time there's an attack or a robbery, it usually ends in death and rape. Most times when there's a robbery, in Nigeria, after the robbery, it ends there.
Yeah.
But you see, because of the pain they feel from the past, the deprivation they feel, and they feel what it's theirs has been taken away, makes them really, really violent. Now in America, on an average, anytime there's a confrontation with a policeman and an African American, it's always, first of all, the new generation of the policemen are scared of any man. And I tell my wife at times that, you see, if I'm walking on the streets, even in the UK or the US, and I see an old lady is coming on this side and there are about 2 of them, I'd rather cross to the other side, because the sight of me in a black t-shirt or anything like scares them. So that fear is there. So the policeman is scared of his life, and you have to know, in America everybody is entitled to carry a gun. Once you have a license, you can carry a gun.
Yeah.
So and then black man is there. The system has been rigged against him. That is the pain they feel. No allowances for any financial assistance, any educational assistance, even the justice system. The opportunities are not there. So if you go deep down into the cities, the American cities, the suffering that the average American is going there is worse than what we have in Lagos. You have to see the way they live.
Okay, Olumide seems to be having technical. So Rennie Alice, You are in Ireland.
You,
What is racism like in Ireland? Really, Alice, we can't hear you. We can't hear you. Hello, Rennie Alice.
sorry, guys. I don't know what happened.
No, that's fine. Now, Jawad,
Yes.
racism. In the United Kingdom, there have been loads of complaints, especially in the southeast, particularly southeast London.
Yes.
You know, about policing, how policing is handled,
Yeah.
profiling,
Yeah.
and high rates of knife attacks.
Yeah.
Are the police justified to profile young Black people based on the level of knife attacks that they're seeing in the United Kingdom?
Okay. Blacks constitute 8% of the population. Yeah.
8.
About
8%.
About 8% of the population.
Okay.
Yeah. We mostly live in the urban areas, built up cities and what have you. And we're also packed together, i.e., we live in places where not just are we congregating together, but we're sort of hedged in, i.e., some of us live in the projects, some live in the suburbs and what have you. So you've got a sprinkling in the suburbs, but mostly in the center urban areas. Now, with regards to the profiling bits, you have a police that is not representative of the population.
Okay.
Just like Olumide said, there is an issue where if he sees a white woman coming, he would cross to the other side to finger. Now, the same way you're interacting with them is the same way they have that impression of you. And where does that come from? That comes from the media. That comes from history.
Yeah.
And that comes from your workplace. Prior to the Stephen Lawrence case in 1992, yeah, and the Macpherson report that came after, where it says the police were institutionally racist, most of the people had no one-on-one situation with the average Black guy. So you had to go by what was reported in the media and how we were portrayed in the newspaper. So that was our interaction with the average Black person. Now, fast forward to, I think, 7 years ago when they came up with this mandatory 5-year sentence that if you have a knife, you get 5 years, regardless of what you have it for. Most of the kids have been sort of stigmatized by the police prior to that, you know. So you had them not understanding the society in which they lived in. You also had the police stereotyping them.
Yeah.
Now, average interaction with the police was one of embarrassment, backs against the wall, being, ransacked without giving reason. Sometimes it was called stop and search, just random. And they were stopping kids as young as 12. Now imagine a kid having to go through that until he's 18. You have this systemic thing about the police officer. Then also the fact that these kids then found the only way they can combat that kind of atrocious stigmatization was, ganging up. Not ganging up per se, but sort of finding comradeship. And then the police will come in, they see groups of you standing against each other, and all of a sudden, you become that group that they focus on. And sooner or later, before you knew it, you become criminalized. And once you're criminalized here, you can't get a job. The system no longer sees you as part of being the system. You're left to your devices. Crime becomes the option.
But the truth is,
You have to survive.
you do have that challenge, of the knife attacks.
Yeah.
You do have, so many things, that people are worried about.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to young Black people all over the world, not just here.
Yeah.
Now, I agree to the fact that, probably you don't have adequate representation,
Mm-hmm.
okay, of the population in terms of policing.
Okay.
But for a country like Nigeria, for instance, you also have these same complaints about policing in Nigeria. Olumide, I've seen where I've been in a car in Lagos and I saw police actually harassing an individual. Now, it is not the normal thing where they tell you all the stuff that they tell you and all whatnot, but it was the way that individual was being handled. That was the problem. Is it a case?
In the case of Nigeria,
Yeah, go ahead.
right? In the case of Nigeria, it's just like what they said when the virus started in Nigeria. We had bigger churches than hospitals.
Yeah.
Do you understand me? We had more churches than hospitals. Right now, you see the police force. You cannot a man that earns about £100 or less a month. You ask him that to secure a man who earns way more than him.
Yeah.
Is deprived. So anytime he sees you, what he sees is someone who is living a better life. The constable or the inspector in the UK, he has the house like you, he has the car, he has the car like you, he has the basics, so he's not interested. So until the Nigerian government decides that let us uplift the police force. If you have not gotten an education up to the university level, I don't think you should be admitted to any part of the police.
But
then you need to up
most of them too are
their salary, up their standard of living, all the things they need. Employ people in the police the way you employ people into NNPC or into other government establishments. Because what happens is that, I'll tell you for free, most of the guys who are not doing well while we were in school, in secondary school or beach, whatever, end up in the police or the customs. Once you run around and you can't get any job and you're a nuisance in your family, they will tell you, "Hey, go and join the police."
Okay.
So, which kind of people do you think are the people? They've lost all hope now. So they said, "Okay, he can't get a job. He's tried this, he didn't get a job. Go and join the police." So these are the kind of people who are safeguarding you. So all they have in their mind is they see you living a better life than they are. So anytime they are going to harass you, and they don't understand why. How come your life is so good and is better than theirs? So until the Nigerian government decide that, listen, the way we are going to handle the police is the way we are going to handle the admissions into NNPC or NPA or UC government establishment. It's not a situation whereby all the if you can't get a job in Nigeria, just go and join the police. They are poorly paid. Immigrations as though there are no benefits. There is nothing. So anytime they go out there, it's what can we get? How are we going to feed our family? So if you have that kind of system, I don't know. It's just it's a bloody waste of time.
So in that situation,
you're going to ask them to guard you, to look after you while you are living a good life. It doesn't make sense.
Sorry, so that in that case,
there has to be a total police reform in Nigeria.
Yes. So in that case, similar to the United States, it's an issue of police reform. Now, Rennie Alice, in Ireland, where you are, there was a video circulating a few days ago about the way the police handled a situation in the city of Cork.
Correct.
That does not seem to be the norm in Ireland. So, what do you think exactly?
I was actually shocked. I was actually shocked because that would be the first time I've ever seen such a video coming out of Ireland, and it was very disturbing because that is not the norm, as you say. We're not used to that in Ireland.
What is the take on racism in Ireland as a country? How do people react towards racism?
Right. I came here 22 years ago, and Ireland was very welcoming, very accommodating 22 years ago. But then I left for about 5 years and came back, and it was a whole new ball game. And I think the problem was a lot of people, there was an influx of Africans coming from the likes of Germany, Italy, Spain, coming into Ireland, and the UK also. And there was a cultural shock for the Irish people.
Okay.
But in saying this, over the last about 10 years or less, it's the racism issue in Ireland has become, it's not as subtle as it used to be. It's now glaring. I mean, in the workplace, I'm a healthcare assistant, and I know that half of the time I work with the community, the only reason why I still do my work is because I love my job. I'm also an entrepreneur on the side, but I do love caring for people. But when I look at the healthcare sector in Ireland and racism, there's a lot of racism there.
A lot of racism.
There is a lot. Yes, there is a lot of racism. We're starting from the office to even the community. You know, some houses wouldn't even, some clients won't let you touch them when you're black.
Now, you know, there seems like a lot of people, you know, have said that they've not had such personal experiences. Some, it's a case of they've shielded themselves from it one way or the other. Some, it's a case of they refuse to acknowledge it. But what is quite amusing about it is that there's no difference between racism 300 years ago and racism. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever heard, you know, of somebody called the Black Mozart.
No.
Okay, all right. Now, ironically, Mozart's mentor was half black. He was much older than Mozart. He was French, or French origin. His father was a nobleman, he was rich, you know, or whatnot, and he was schooled in the arts, adequately schooled, and he could play the violin with such fervor. They call him Saint George. I can't pronounce the French, it's very tongue twisting, whatever, and all that. But apparently, he was called the Black Mozart, whereas it was a case of he was the one that mentored Mozart. So a lot of the times, you know, it's been said that there are inventions that, you know, have come up and was taken away from the black people.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Now, if that is the situation, Africa has the human resources. You have 1.2 billion and change people in Africa. You have all the mineral resources. And then you have the talent. Why is Africa not developing as it should? You have the United States. You have the blacks contributing to the development of the United States. You have them contributing to the development of the United Kingdom. All over the world, wherever you see, especially Nigerians, you find out that Nigerians are among the highest educated wherever they go.
Okay.
Why are we not developing? What is the problem with Africans? Have we been brainwashed to a point where we just can't figure things out ourselves? If we have been brainwashed, who brainwashed us? How did things get to a point where we are more associated with crime than any other thing? I think there's a much, much deeper issue that we need to start looking at, and we need to start asking these questions. Jawad,
I'm sorry, I'm just joining in now a bit, but if you don't give a man an opportunity he has to fend for himself. He has to feed one way or the other. If the opportunities are not there, he has to feed.
But people create.
He's not going to lie down and starve to death. Yes, and he has to feed himself.
People create opportunities.
So if the opportunities are not there, be it in the West, be it in Africa, if the opportunities are not there, man must stay alive and survive. So you're telling me, he goes to jail, he comes out, he can't get a job, the opportunities are not there, the system is already blocked for him. What is he supposed to do?
So that's
the only option is crime.
The system that is not reformative is more punitive than reformative. Now, the UK system is supposed to be.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I said that's a system that is more punitive than being reformative. In the UK, they say the system is reformative rather than punitive. But that seems to be the exact same problem that you have in the United Kingdom as well, Jawad.
Yes. With the you use the word reformative. The British penal system has gone the way of the Americans, short of one thing, which is you come out, the society will still embrace you. Unlike in the States where you're discarded. Society no longer sees you fit. That's one issue. Now, if we're to look at the issue of racism, as it were, and why Africa is struggling, I think it's down to education. Do you know, since the white man left, and I'll use a generic year, which is the 1960.
Yeah.
We've not refocused our education system.
Oh, that is really bad.
We've not refocused our education system. We're still taught that Mungo Park discovered River Niger.
Oh, yeah.
We're still taught.
That is rather abusing, isn't it?
Exactly. So until you gear your education towards the needs of your society, that idea of being self-sufficient, being self-reliant will be a pipe dream. China, when China locked itself away during the Great Leap Forward,
yes,
the first thing it did was, okay, fine, we'll close out the world. Let's see what we have and work with what we have. Yes, people died off. Okay, maybe, let's play with numbers here. 4 million, 40 million died off. We don't have 40 million to play with.
Yeah.
But where they are right now, that 40 million looks like a worthy sacrifice. But the thing with the African society in general, I'm not even going by countries now. The African society in general is, we've been conditioned to think, as long as we keep doing what it is we're doing, we'll get a different outcome. It's not going to happen. It won't happen.
So I was speaking to an educationist earlier today, and we're going to have a show on Sunday. It's going to be a panel of educationists.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them mentioned something called the hidden curriculum, whereby it's a case of, like in the UK, for instance, some schools have a better tailored system than other schools in some certain areas. And I wondered how that was even possible. How is that possible?
It is possible. I'll use this analogy. It is possible. Most of the schools in the UK have what's called a governor's board.
Yes.
Okay. So the governors you have in a particular school have an input into how the kids are taught. Yeah. So if you went to, for instance, you went to a Catholic school, and what you have on the board, you have staunch Catholics. The education will be focused, will be tailored based on instruction, no feedback. education. It will be instructional to the point where this is what we want you to know, this is what you would know. Now, if you go into an inner city school where you have majority, maybe black kids and what have you, and the governors are of their parents, obviously, they would factor into the school's curriculum, the teachers, they would try as much as possible to lean on them. That, okay, the kids seem to be suffering in this class. Can we focus more on this? And when you focus more, you tend to have more input into what is going in. And I think that is where the issue of that hidden curriculum comes into play. Because the more the parents have input into what the kids are being taught, the school has no recourse other than to follow what it is they're being advised. I hope I'm making a...
The question there is this.
Mhm.
How can they possibly hide or have a different curriculum?
I don't think it's a different curriculum in the sense, it's just the way how that curriculum is taught. If I said, I'll give an example. If I said
The quality of teachers?
yes, I think it's more of that. And it's more of the input that the teachers bring to play. Like, there are some schools here where, I mean, there are mostly black kids in, what's it called? In East London here. And the head teacher is a Nigerian. Now, the school is in a considered disadvantaged area of London.
Yes.
But most of the kids are going into Oxford.
Really?
Why? Yes. Why? Now, the reason is simple. The reason is not only were they taught, but they were taught in a manner and language they will understand. The way you teach a kid who is much more explorative and aware of their environment is different from a kid where you teach it's different from how you teach a kid who basically is just looking to you for rote learning. It's like 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3. But some kids will ask the question, why? Why? So if you feed that imagination, you get much more out of it. So that for me is an idea of a hidden curriculum, because you've come to teaching with a different viewpoint, with a different way of take. But if we were to go back to the Nigerian situation, where I can tell you for sure what I was taught in Form 1 is the same kids now, and I'm talking almost like 30 years ago. What I was taught then is what the kids are still being taught now. Tell me, how is that relevant? How? And you want your country to move forward. Yeah.
Do you think that is largely responsible, for the high crime rate amongst the black youth?
Yes, because if your education is not engaging them, okay, put it this way, not every kid can learn in a classroom. Yeah. So long as that is the case, we had there was a scheme while I was in secondary school where you had technical colleges and you also had day schools. So people went to technical colleges and people also went to day schools. The product of those technical colleges will now be your carpenters, your mechanics, and what have you. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. The products of your quote unquote white collar curriculum will go into your universities. Yeah. And further become your doctors, your pilots, and what have you. It's not to belittle the kid that didn't go to those schools, but it's to give them a different path in life.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, if you force me to do something that I'm not interested in, sooner or later I'll lose interest. So once I lose interest, and the point is to get to 10, but you've lost me at 2.
Wow.
what's going to happen?
Olumide, I hope you have been able to follow us so far.
Yes, a bit. Yes, a bit.
Okay.
It was so bad I couldn't hear this. I couldn't hear anything, so I just had to cut out and come in again.
Sorry about the technical. Now, I was just asking Jawad. I said, so do you think? Yeah, that's also the question for you. Do you think that the poor level of education is largely responsible for the high crime rates amongst Black youth?
Are you talking of in Nigeria or worldwide or the
Generally.
West?
Generally.
No, but I don't think the family structure is the first line of education. The family structure is the first line of education.
Very correct. I do.
66% of African American kids don't have a father figure. The mom is working 2 or 3 jobs at the same time. She has no time to look after the kids. So when they get back from school, they drop their bags, they have lunch, they are out on the streets. The mom is going to get back 9 in the evening. She's going to be exhausted, or maybe 11 at night. She's just going to hit the sack, and the cycle goes on. There's so much free time. And when there is free time, it's the streets that will be the father
of the child.
That's where the first of the issues start from. So the family is the first education. Once that is lost, whatever you're doing on the second education, which is the school, is a waste of time. We know how boys used to leave school, break across the fence, go into town, go and get drunk, go and do other other social vices, because the first line of defense of the family unit is not there. The second one, the education, is just a waste of time. They are not interested. And by the time it's time to leave high school or secondary school, they are already way deep into drugs, and some other stuff. It's going to take you a long time, to sit down and start reading WAEC or doing JAM and trying to get into university. And even if you beat those 2 systems and get into the university, the cult guys are waiting for you. And it's like it's an easy way out. So all these steps are the things that a father figure, you can never underestimate the power of a father figure in a home. African Americans don't have that. 66% of them are going to grow up without a father. Their fathers are in jail. At times, the mothers are on drugs. The kid has no option. He has no option.
Cheats and now starts to engage in a life of crime.
Because he has to eat, and the guy around the street corner is going to take advantage of it. Okay, here, okay, have 100. Just let me hold this. One guy is going to drive by, is going to pick it up, and that's how it starts. The likes of them, Jay-Z, they were among the lucky ones who did the drugs and they were able to escape. But how many Jay-Z's? Do we have? How many Jay-Z's do we have?
Jawad,
if you look at them,
did the likes of Idris Elba go through that?
Well, Idris Elba's saving grace was music, first and foremost.
Okay.
He grew up in Hackney. So music was he's originally a DJ.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the acting thing just came up because
he's still a DJ.
Yeah, he's still a DJ. But Idris Elba was originally a DJ. So
he's a big time DJ.
So the music thing was his outlet. So somebody, I think he was saying his story a while back, that somebody saw him while he was on the turntables and said he just wanted him to act a scene. And he did that scene, and before he knew it, he got a call to the States. He hung out with his mates they were not even in Hollywood. They were in, what's that place he lived in? Maryland.
Okay.
And that's where he got The Wire.
Oh, right. Okay. Yes, I've seen the
that's how he became Stringer in The Wire.
That's how he broke in.
And that was it.
That's how he broke onto the scene.
Yeah.
So he apparently had a similar background, even albeit in England, but he was able to break away from that system.
Yeah. Because he had a skill.
But it wasn't a skill he trained for, was it?
Well, to be a DJ, you need to put some practice in. Let's be honest. You need to put a bit of practice in. But still, if you don't have the skill, nobody would have noticed him to give him the gig where he got the acting scene. So it's almost like a multiplier effect. You bring something to the table, you get something in return, and then you get rewarded for something else. And then all of a sudden you tell yourself, I think I can do that. And you're given the opportunity. And if you're good at it, you move on. But some of these kids don't have that opportunity.
A lot of young, the young ones now.
I gave you a good example yesterday. I sent you a recording on Dwight York on BBC Radio. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Okay,
you can see that is a man who has been a professional. He has been a professional. He's well informed, he's well educated, and he's not even below par as per his standard of living. But with everything he has, he's still not been able to break into the managerial role for a black man in the Premier League.
That is another.
If you look at the Spanish league, the German league, the Italian league, the Premier League, how many black players do you have in management? And we have so many black players, playing in Europe. So the system worldwide is skewed against the black man. When you come out of jail, the form you're going to fill if you want to go and get a job is going to ask you, have you been to prison, yes or no? Once you write you've been to prison, you are not going to get a job again. You are not going to get a job. And even if you get a job, it will be at the bottom of the ladder, which will be below the minimum wage. How are you going to survive on that? If you look at if an African American is involved in any violent crime, whatever the white man is going to get on that, is going to be triple that amount on the. If you remember the scandal of American University, I can't remember her name now. Taylor, who paid about $15,000 to have a child get into an Ivy League school. She was given a 14 days suspended sentence. There's an African American lady. There's an African American lady who took her child across to a school not in her zone. She was sent to prison for 6 years. For 6 years. How do you balance that? How do you even reason that? So Black Lives Matter and the fight and the riot going on is to fight the system. And as I said, up to now, I've not seen anything among the black leaders that is going to still help them, to fight the system. The whites who are in charge of the system are just waiting. This thing is going to die down. Once this thing dies down, things are going to go back to normal. I've not seen any submissions to the Senate or the Congress on a new bill to pass, some reforms or to say this must be done or this. No, there's nothing happening. I don't see the likes of Jay-Z or Puff Daddy or the coming together, addressing Congress and pushing a bill to say this we want to do.
I beg to disagree there.
All we hear is on social media here and there.
Now I beg.
Okay. Maybe I'm not so informed on that, but
I beg
that's the little I know.
I beg to disagree there. I think this one is going to be different, very different, and I'll say why it's different. For the first time, this conversation we are having now is being had across places where it doesn't normally happen. NASCAR, which is largely white America, has banned the Confederate flag.
But all those things are symbolic.
No. I'm about to make a point. I'm about to make a point.
Yeah.
Now, yes, they're symbolic. Yes. But it means somebody's listening. Ordinarily, like Olumide said, they will wait for things to die down. But I think this one is different. Now, on the issue of the legal reform, there is a bill going through the House at the moment. The Democrats have put in a bill. Justice Reform Bill, and the Republicans too have put in a version of
AOC.
theirs. They're similar, with the odd difference in there. So, and I think if they put them together and tick off what it is they're not agreeing on, which they can still discuss going forward, I think we'll put something on the status books. Now, with regards to the practical element of it, the policing, the police across the United States now understand that the eyes and the eyes of the world are on them. It's no longer business as usual. In New York, of all places, they've just banned the idea of chokeholds. If you come in now, they didn't used to do background checks on their police officers. So New York is the largest police department in the entire United States, followed by Chicago.
Yeah.
So they just signed the background check bill. The New York City has just okayed that. Okay, fine. For the first time in a while, we're going to have to start looking at the backgrounds of the people we hire as cops. Now, ordinarily, you will have thought years ago when frisk and search was deemed as illegal, this thing will have come then. But now, if you start introducing stuff like this, it means you're listening. So even Hollywood knows that they can no longer, they have to start giving all, gone are the days where Spike Lee is the only blackface you will see in Hollywood.
Oh yeah. Let me bring on, Venialis again. I think she's ready. She's back with us. Let us hear what it feels like, as a woman, as a mother, for you to wake up, your kids are going out, and then you have some fears at the back of your mind. Venialis.
It's actually very scary, to the point where
Hello, Rennie is back.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly.
We can hear you loud and clear.
So it's actually very scary as a mother, because one of the reasons why I remained in this country, even after 20-something years, after 22 years, is because I thought it was safe. But especially this year, it's my whole mindset with Ireland and the whole safety, it's as if I was fooling myself, especially this year. It's as if when you remove the scale of somebody's eyes or the curtains of somebody's face, you can actually see the real deal now. My kids, I don't feel my kids are safe in Ireland anymore. Especially when I have vocal, my girls are vocal. I have vocal children. They're not timid. They're not one of those kids that you could push them around and Pardon me? Yeah, they won't be rude, but they would answer you. Very vocal. They're like their mother. It's in my DNA. My mother was a freedom fighter in South Africa, and those were the days of Mandela. She was the first female to be trained in Russia for the ANC. So issues like this are like in my DNA, and you cannot keep my kids quiet, especially my 15-year-old. We had a Black Lives Matter
march,
what they call it, protest last week, Saturday, I believe. Yeah, last week Saturday. And she wanted to go with her friends. It was in my town. It's not in Dublin. And I could easily have told her, okay, fine, you guys head off. But I refused. I went with her because I wanted to make sure she was okay. Because of the kind of things I've, number one, I've been able to see with my own eyes. This one is not hearsay. I've seen a lot, and it's really scary now. And of course, there was this, I'm sure, Habib, you might have seen this video or my rant on Facebook sometime in January when I was talking about the black gangs in Dublin.
Yes.
Yeah, and that has really, you know, made an impact with the way they view African kids. They're forgetting that the fact that these kids were born here doesn't make them Irish. They don't have the same mentality. The only time they have the same mentality is when they're at school together. The minute they get home, someone like me, I would tell them, you know what? Leave your Irish attitude outside my door. When you get inside, you're African again. And then when you go out to school, you can be Irish again. You know what I mean? So they know how to balance themselves. But there are people out there that will purposely antagonize this kid. And then when the child, confronts the person or reacts to whatever the person has said, it's the one that the African child has said or done that will be seen. My 15-year-old, when she was 6, she went into, I live in an estate. I'm the only black in the estate. I've been living here for the past 13 years with my daughters. And she went out with her friends, a 6-year-old. They were all in that age group, 6 till 8, I think.
Yes.
There were about 5 of them. They went out to the field and they were playing. And I think one of the kids agitated the other one, and the other one took something that looked sharp. I think it's a tool, for plastering. And she was waving it at the boy like, I'm going to, deal with you, or I'm going to teach you a lesson. And there was an adult in one of the houses that saw this and called the guards, called the police.
On 6-year-old kids?
Yes. And my daughter was the only black kid there. There was another child that was half Filipino and Irish, and the rest were pure, Caucasian kids. And guess what? When the policeman came to my house, this is after because I think when the woman decided to call the guards and the kids, maybe they noticed that, somebody was looking at them, they decided to go home. Anyway, my daughter returned home and the guards came to my door and they said to me, could we have a word with you? And they narrated the whole story that the lady had, given to them. And apparently it was my child that was holding the weapon, the so-called weapon.
Okay.
Of which she never held the weapon, of which she was not. The only problem with my daughter is, I have 2 of them. I have one, the oldest one is smart. She will say, okay, there's trouble, I'm going home. But the younger one wants to see where this trouble will go to.
Natural inquisitive.
Yes, very inquisitive. That one she got from me. But all right, she came home and then this lady called the guards and said, oh no, it was the black kid. She didn't say there were 5 kids. She didn't say there was 1 black kid and 1 half Filipino and the rest were Irish. She
was just a black kid.
Went for
a black kid.
Yes, a 6-year-old. And luckily, yes, and luckily, one of the guards knows me personally.
When you come to think about it, that's for children. I saw one video earlier today of I'm being inundated with videos. Different people send me different stuff and all that. Probably, out of the benefit of doing this, radio shows and all that. Somebody sent me a video of a 12-year-old
9-year-old boy. Of the 9-year-old boy that was being jacked on the neck.
He was 11.
It was 11. Okay, somewhere in the States, right?
Yes, it was 11.
I saw the video. I couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it because
it was being
manhandled. My son's age.
It was being manhandled by 3 armed police, and the 4th person was
policeman.
There were 2 male, 1 female.
A female.
Police, and then there was 1 security guard, male security guard. And in the course of trying to arrest the boy, some onlookers were like, you can't do this. You have to, call the child's parents.
Wait for the parent.
Before you can do it.
Oh, you mean the one with the Latino guy who was stopping the police
Yeah.
officer?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, the Latino guy was wearing like a black
See on the board, you can't do this.
Uh,
Now, did you notice how many police cars came to that scene?
There were
I
in
didn't
the.
see the video.
I think there were 4 of them. There
There were
was
it's just crazy.
For one child.
It's just crazy.
yeah. 4 police
For
cars.
one child.
11-year-old boy that we could not, because of the video and because the video did not show what had happened prior, we couldn't tell exactly what had transpired.
But still, no matter what happened,
But what could have
Exactly.
transpired to a point where this boy was already in handcuffs? There were 4 of you, and then you still had to call for backup.
More backup.
A child.
Just unreal. It's just unreal.
For myself, all I can do is I can only keep asking questions because a lot of things just don't seem clear. Something that some people have mentioned recently is that you have bad cops.
Yeah.
But it seems as if you don't have good cops at all. Because if you say you're a good cop and you stand by and watch a bad cop in action and you don't do anything about it, then you are just as complicit in what is
As the backup.
Okay, there's a side story to what you just said. There is a guy called Franco Serpico.
okay.
Yeah, he was made famous in 1973. He was a New York cop.
Yeah.
He joined the police. He joined the NYPD, and when he got on, good cop, he noticed a lot of underhand activities.
Yeah.
And then he got posted to he sort of argued against working with the police officers working on the streets. So he got moved to the narcotics division. Long story short, he also found that the narcotics division to be very, very corrupt. So he screamed to his superior officers. They did some investigation. They fired a couple of people. They left some staff on. They transferred some people out. They moved some other people in. Now, it's so transpired that the people they moved in were the people he left from the normal police division before.
Okay.
Wow.
So, and the principle of policing, it's I always have your back. So he went to make an arrest.
Clan. And once you join the police, it becomes a clan. You become
Yeah.
a member of the boys'
So he
club.
went to make an arrest. And then when he went to make an arrest, what transpired was they'd already informed those guys they were going to make the arrest of that there is this guy coming. And he doesn't do talking, he just shoots. Now, the idea was we're going in, we're going to bust. We're going to arrest anybody we find in the building, and then we'll talk to them in the police station. Long story short, they got to the door in the dark. He knocks on the door. They spray through the door. There was no backup for him. He called, he radioed. It's actually in Godfather. There's a scene like that in Godfather.
Yeah.
And the story from this guy's story, he was sprayed, but luckily he survived. So for about 5 years, he was off the cuff. It was off the beat. He came back just to retire, and he asked one question. He said, "Why?" And the answer was, "Because you're a rat." So that's where the idea of being a rat on the police force came into play. It was Frank Serpico's character. So when you say the good cop,
yeah,
so they make him as a reference point that if you snitch on us, we will not back you. We even frame you if we have the chance.
Wow.
So
Now,
which is why
what is worrisome about what you're saying is this. In Nigeria, in some other African countries, people are complaining about the policing methods in a lot of those African countries. But we have never heard in any of those African countries the amount of police shootings. Even though we say that those cops in Africa are undertrained
Okay.
and underfunded. But we've never seen, or maybe we just don't have enough data to back it up. We actually haven't seen this amount of intimidation by the police, killings by the police. It's unbelievable. I saw one video about 3-4 days ago.
Okay.
A man that was giving quote unquote commands by police officers holding assault weapons. Their body cam was on, and they told the person to lay on the floor and crawl towards them.
Oh yeah. In the
saying if you
in the hotel hall.
If you make any mistakes in the commands we give you, you're likely to get shot. First things first. For somebody that's unarmed, you are giving commands and you're holding assault rifles trained on the person. Why should the issue of shooting even come up, about at all in the first place? But they actually did kill the guy. That was at their mercy.
Okay.
So it's a crime to not obey the command of a police officer in the United States of America. It seems to be the greatest crime you can commit.
Okay, there are
any other crime, but you not understanding the command of a police officer.
I don't know if Alice wants to answer that, then I'll go.
That's scary. I know that it's frozen. Hello, Renee Alice, are you there? I don't think she's there.
Okay. I'll go before she does. Okay. Now the issue with policing in the United States is layered. Very layered. Very layered. Okay. Long story short, in 1994, there was something called the Federal Crime Bill passed by Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Criminalizing African Americans. Because the idea was you have to be tough on crime. Hillary Clinton gave this speech at the NAACP about the super predator.
Yes.
Basically framing black kids, black men as predators. 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds, that they just go out wilding, just robbing people. So she will give them the name super predator. Bearing in mind, in the American Constitution, the 13th Amendment already says you have all your rights except if you've committed a crime. Yeah? So the moment you've committed a crime, you disappear. You become a number. You no longer have a name.
You just become a statistic.
You become a statistic. Now, back to the issue of the police. Now, because you've created that framework of criminalizing largely African Americans, yeah, the interaction is based on how you're perceived in the media and what my perception of you is. It doesn't matter what has transpired before. What I've view of you in front of me is what I deal with. And then there was a prevalence of infiltration of the KKK into the police force. Now, here comes the mix. KKK comes into the police force. The Federal Crime Bill gives the American police across the board, regardless of what the size of the police force is, military style equipment. That's why you see them with RoboCop outfits.
Yes, they have been purchasing, the police departments all over the United States have been purchasing, military grade weapons from.
Yes. Those were the excess produced from the military industrial complex.
Yes.
To make matters worse, which is why I said layers. To make matters worse, you had Gulf War I, Gulf War II, the war in Afghanistan. Guys who came back from those wars, who were demobilized, guess where they end up?
In the police force.
With post-traumatic stress syndrome. The idea of a Marine is shoot first, ask questions later. So,
all right. So the picture's becoming a bit clearer now.
exactly. So you give them a gun. They go into the urban area. Everywhere is high rise, it's dark. You go into military style mode. The enemy's around me. How do I engage? They use military style languages. Neutralize. They don't use kill. Target has been neutralized. Everything has been.
They don't use apprehend.
They don't use apprehend. Yeah. So they don't use cop car. They use weapons. They use conveyance. Military style languages in the manual, in training. So what do you expect? When what do you expect when interaction happens?
Olumide, I was saying, we lost you there for a bit, and I was saying to the other panelists that upon the low level of education of the police in different countries all over Africa, and the low level of funding, we have not seen or heard them kill as many people, especially unarmed people, as you have in the United States. So from what Jawad is saying now, yeah, it seems more a case of there are psychological issues already pre-existing before these people are employed into the police force. Now, I actually thought that the employment processes into some of those police force in the African countries was bad. But apparently it is a case of it is easier for you to become a policeman in the United States than for you to actually become a teacher.
Okay, there are two issues that you raised there. Let me first address the one of Nigeria before I go to the one of the West. Okay, let me bust your bubble. First of all, the amount of extrajudicial, as they say, the killings, in Nigeria is as high or as much as it is in the US. Don't be deceived.
It's as high.
Every day innocent people get killed by the police. If you that are caught on camera are the ones that that are arrested or apprehended by their AI, but a lot of people are killed every day by the police in so many. I mean, what you see online is probably Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt, and maybe a bit of pocket here and there. But there are so many things that happen in the hinterland and in the small states that the police, they get away with. Remember, our police are not well equipped, so there's no camera. So it's the camera of a few passers-by that you probably get that information from, and if they catch you with that camera, they'll probably kill you. I mean, I have a couple of friends, when we were in university. I'm sure you know some of them. They are still alive now because one of them has passed away. He was actually my cousin. I think he went to your university, and he was killed by the police. The only thing that saved his two friends that one of them ran away, because at the end of the day they decided, listen, what are we going to do? What are the options? So especially the boys that are found doing the internet fraud boys, the so-called Yahoo boys, they are apprehended on regular by the SARS, and there are so many extrajudicial killings. It's impossible to imagine that happen every day. It's only a few that we get to hear. But so many. So don't, because you see, it's all about education. When you look at it, you give these guys guns. These guys have you? I think as in Nigeria, has he ever been in your vehicle before? Have you ever given them a lift, or they stepped into your car?
No.
You know that the life they lead is so poor and so horrible that the standards, the way. I mean, there are a few of them, the mopos who are attached to the ministers and the lot of Nigerians who are well kept, and which is another thing. When we were growing up, the mobile were never out there. They were called only on duties. Why police are exactly security guards. You know, they are elevated security guards guarding the White House and the big man, the so-called Nigerian big man. Before group of the the mobile police never left their camp. They only came out in times of riot or strife or disturbances.
Yeah, so
but now they are more like they are security guards. In my estate, there were like 2 or 3 at the gate. You know, you see them as escorts. You see them as escorts to to whoever can afford it. Whoever can afford it. It doesn't matter you're Chinese, you're Lebanese. If you can afford to pay what you pay and the extra, you can get any. If I want to have 10 of them, if I can afford it, I can have 10 of them. You know, so I don't think for that dealings go on here as well. It might even be higher because over there's the camera on the chest, and then there are a lot of people who are doing the video shoot. When things happen in Ekiti, Ibadan, or a checkpoint in Lokoja, how are you going to hear of it at the dead of the night? You're not going to hear about it.
That's a fact.
And they're not going to report it either. They're just going to get rid of the body. You know, and back. You see, the issue of the police in America, as Jawad said, has been infiltrated by the KKK. They own the police force.
But don't you think that?
You know, and what happens?
Don't think there's more
in America most when you lose a job as a police.
Sorry, don't you think there's more of an issue over the fact that the average American has a right to bear arms? That in itself is a challenge. So one of our viewers says, as long as Americans bear arms, defunding might not work. And it is true, because Americans have the right to bear arms.
Yes.
So how can it's not like the British police, because I saw a documentary about an old-time gangster who used to operate during the time of the Cray brothers.
Yeah.
Back in the UK in the old days. And he said you had to have special connections to be able to get a firearm. It was not something you could easily get. So there was no reason for the police to actually have firearms. Now, today, the bobbies still do not use firearms on a day-to-day basis. Even here in Ireland, it's a case of there's a special squad that handles firearms.
Okay.
Simply because it's not easy for you to get access to firearms. But in a case where in the United States, you can walk into a shop, buy a loaf of bread, buy a can of milk, and when you get to the counter, you just remember, oh, I actually need an AK-47. And then you pay for it, just like you're buying a pack of cigarettes. How can you defund the police when that is still in place?
Okay.
How is that going to happen?
I don't think it's so much as defund. I think, okay, sometimes language is conflated. When you say defund the police force, what they're saying is not all of the money they get should go towards policing. Some should go towards outreach programs with the community so that you create that interaction between the police and the policed. Yeah?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'll give you an example. In New York, the NYPD's budget is about 3.8 billion a year.
So there's a lot of that to buy arms.
Exactly. So what they're saying is, instead of creating the problems outside and then having protection, why don't you spread some of that money into outreach programs for the kids, art classes, and what have you? And then have, obviously, there will be a kitty where, okay, the idea is defund them by 30%. 30% of 3 billion is still leaves quite a large chunk.
Yes.
But not give them 3.8 billion every year. And then not provide services outside. So I think that's the issue. It's not defund them to the point where the police no longer exist. And by the way, the issue of whether they're defunded or not, or whether Americans have a right to bear arms, is the right to bear arms is qualified in so as you defend yourself. I.e., if I came into your house, you have the right to defend yourself. Shoot. But you don't have the right to go outside and start waving the gun around menacingly. There are states within the United States where it's open and carry.
Yeah, you have open carry, you have concealed
and carry. Exactly. So yes, you have all of that. And even then, if the police is going to engage with you, the first question they ask is, do you have a gun on you? And you answer, yes, I have one. And I have a legal permit to do so. So I don't think the issue of, defunding them because people are still carrying guns is an issue. It's not one or the other. It's a question of, you can marry both systems, but the idea of policing to the point of militarization should be lowered. That temperature should be tempered. I mean, look at those riot pictures.
One of our viewers, Oluwatosin says that's not quite correct. You cannot buy a firearm by just walking into a store. You need to wait 2 weeks for a background check to be done.
Yeah, but you can still place the order for the gun. Technically, bought the gun.
Yes, technically, that's exactly what he's saying. Yeah. So, but a question that is very pertinent that people keep asking is, why do Americans defend bearing arms, knowing quite all right that the more arms you have in circulation, the more volatile the situation is? Okay.
When United States became an entity as we recognized it, the Constitution, United States was started by a riot, the Boston Tea Riot, which was essentially King Charles asking everybody to pay tax on tea. And then they kicked off against it. That became the American War of Independence. Now, insofar as the Declaration of Independence goes, they had this clause put into their constitution that everybody had the right to bear arms. Everybody of a military age should barely hold a gun as part of a militia. So that is why that clause is there. That is why.
This is what Oluwatosin has said again. He said that is not true. The Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms, and it shall not be infringed, and it is unqualified.
It is qualified insofar as, with the background checks, qualifies it. Why do you have a background check in place?
Yes. So, a lot of the times, there's a lot of misconceptions about why you have the right to bear arms, who should bear arms. Now, some people feel that guns are the most highly regulated consumer goods in America. I don't think so.
No, it's not.
Why I say I don't think so is this. People do buy guns, okay, legally.
Yeah.
But the fact that some people can buy guns legally means that you are definitely going to have guns illegally in the system, and at a much higher rate than a society that does not allow you to bear arms legally.
Okay.
These are the issues that people need to start looking at, and they need to start asking questions.
The guns they're worried about are the unregulated guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you would have those unregulated guns. So
unlicensed.
Yes.
Unlicensed guns.
Unregulated, yes.
Okay.
You would have a high proliferation of those type of weapons. So far, you have people having access to those things legally as well.
Yes. You've got, in the United States, I mean, the NRA is the umbrella body for all people who bear arms and what have you. But there was, I think last year, what happened? I think there was an incident that happened. Oh, yeah. When this guy went into the church and killed the parishioners.
Yeah.
Dylan Roof. When he went to into the church in Charleston and killed those parishioners. One of the things that was discussed then was how was it possible for them to get guns and what have you. Now, one of the things that was looked at was, we've got 350 million Americans, but we've got over 800 million guns in circulation.
Yeah.
800 million guns in circulation. That's not with the military. That is with the general population. So they looked at the point where it meant almost people had 2.5 guns. Each person had 2.5 guns. Obviously not. Because if you look at the guy who went to kill people in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
he actually went in as if he was a platoon. Every suitcase in that grand suite had at least 5 guns in it, and they had 50 suitcases in there. 50 suitcases.
250 guns.
Yes.
What am I saying?
Yes. You're yes, you're saying. The thing is, it is shocking because there are guys who just feel getting guns is just buying sweets. I get paid. What do I do? Oh, I think I need a Glock. I'll go and get a Glock. I'll go and get a. I'll go and get an AR-15. I'll go and get a coat. For them, just like you pop into a store to buy a T-shirt, for them, that's what guns represent because they can. So the regulation helps, but I think education is better.
So you think it's good? It's still all right to have the guns, but if they are better educated, then you will not have the issues that you have.
Yes, and also, I think it's largely a racist problem, and I'll tell you why. With the South, with the historical succession and what have you, they took heed with that gun. They got it and they held on to it. The only times there was a semblance of blacks arming themselves, which was with the Black Panther. They rolled that regulation. So maybe that is what we need. Get the blacks to go out, buy guns, and come out and publicly display the fact that they have those guns. Maybe that will change the mindset. Hopefully. I know it's a back-around way to go about it. But still, sometimes, maybe that's the only language people understand.
Well, I still don't, maybe because I'm I'm comfortable with the European lifestyle. I still feel uncomfortable seeing a lot of people carrying guns.
Carrying guns, yeah.
I feel uncomfortable knowing that there are people carrying guns and those guns are concealed. I still feel uncomfortable knowing that you have such laws like stand your ground, where somebody feels that over a verbal miscommunication, you can actually pull out a gun and shoot somebody. I still feel uncomfortable about the fact that I'm a black guy and walking the streets puts my life at risk simply because there's a proliferation of guns, both legally and illegally in the system.
Okay.
So I don't know, if it is right to actually have guns in the system. Now, this is what, one of the guests, Odola Ajibola, says, education versus mental illness, meaning that why do you need the guns?
Okay. Why do you need the guns? I would argue on the side of the American who has the gun now. He will say, because the law says I can. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So because the law says I can, the issue of whether I am mentally capable of handling a gun does not come into it. Now, so the system has to now come about, it has to come up with a way of saying, are you capable of handling a gun? Until the system comes up with that, as long as there is the provision in the Constitution for them to have it, they will go out and buy it. And there's a willing seller, there's a willing buyer. Don't forget, they operate in a capitalist system.
Oh, yeah.
And supply.
That makes the entire scenario quite scary, and there seems to be no end, to the discussion. There seems to be no end to, the issue of racism, there seems to be no end to the issue of the violence. It is unfortunate that there's a lot of crime going with the protests, the looting, the vandalism and all whatnot.
Okay.
I don't think that those things serve any purpose. I think it defeats the aim of the protests in itself.
Okay.
I think there should be more of a focus. Yeah. And that focus should be on the fact that Black lives do matter. We have, I think Oluwatosi Otoju is responding to me, I think. He says the Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, protections. Okay, I think I need to put this on the screen. So he says the Constitution guarantees the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, protections from unreasonable search and seizure, etc. If you would not allow the curtailment of these other rights guaranteed by the Constitution, why then would you allow the curtailment of gun ownership? The only right that the Constitution explicitly says shall not be infringed. Now, on the issue of this rights, I would pick protections from unreasonable search and seizure, which is something that we have seen happening all over the United States. We have seen it in such a way that it is much more targeted, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
Nobody is protesting that Constitution is being that part of the Constitution is being infringed upon, but they are complaining about the gun ownership. Well, at the end of the day, what purpose does it truly serve to have so many guns? That is the question.
Well,
what purpose does it serve? Violence begets violence.
No, I mean, that is one way of looking at it. I would argue that, again, if you do not educate the Americans about the need to divorce themselves from the gun, I don't think. Oh, she owes 6. Wow. I don't. So she, Oluwatosi buttresses my point.
I wish he could join us and tell us why he owns 6 guns. Well, some people will tell you those guns, they own those guns for recreational purposes. Some people they own those guns for self-protection, and a myriad of other reasons.
I think we've gone. I think we've gone past the idea of people not having the guns, which is where education will actually come in, because the horse has already bolted.
Oh yes,
the guns are out there. You're never gonna have a New Zealand where the guns are gonna be recalled, because it says in the Constitution shall not be infringed.
Yes.
Okay, the lawyers will fight you tooth and nail to ensure that part of the Constitution is covered. So maybe education is the way to go.
Education, okay. So
background checks.
Somebody from London has said again that right about 2004 in London, there was a knife amnesty, because once you carry a knife, you just don't know when you might use it. Now, the outcome for all involved will most likely not be a good one.
Okay.
Now, at the end of the day, this has still not stopped the knife crime or the high level of knife crime in the United Kingdom.
Okay.
Same with what Otoji is saying, which is saying that, why should you stop me from owning guns? Because it doesn't have any purpose. It doesn't probably, the issue here now is that whether they are guns or knives, in the society, is not going to stop the crime. So why stop us from owning, those weapons?
Well, there is something called
talking as regards, the police, or as regards the right, to bear arms.
Yeah, the matter spilled over into the right to bear arms. And somebody, was talking about, one of the viewers was commenting on the issue of the right to bear arms, because I said, why should you have arms at all? whether legally or illegally, in a system?
Well, there's nothing you can do about the United States of America as regards the rights. It's in their constitution, and you have to remember 60% of America is rural.
Yeah.
60% of America is rural. So those guns, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it. It's in their system. It's their way of life. There's nothing you can do about it. As regards the police, because I mean, it's obvious that crime, is lesser in the UK than it is in the US. Vis-a-vis, geography and and population, but still, crime is higher in America than than in the US. Sorry, is higher in the US than in the UK.
Much more higher. And as a matter of fact, this is what Ositojo has to say again. He says, interestingly, most homicides involve handguns. Now,
yeah, because
it's easy to conceal.
That's easiest for you to carry around. It's the easiest for you to carry around. It's just like putting a knife on your
Texas. In Texas, you're allowed to carry your gun as long as in your car, as long as it's displayed. So when you see most of them, the gun is open at the back of the truck. You can see their gun. They're armed.
Open and carry.
That's open.
Any fender bender or anything, the guy.
Open and carry. Yeah.
It's amazing.
So everybody. So I mean, that affair is that makes the policing of America difficult, because the average white man or non-black is afraid of every black man. So the fear is already there as soon as they approach it. You can see the way. Why will you handle an 11? Three of you. Why will you handle an 11-year-old boy and hold him by the neck? Threat. The boy is so scared. What threat does he have that you have to handle him like that?
I still find that pretty amazing.
What is the essence of that?
I still find that pretty amazing. But I'll ask
There are four men.
a question.
There are three men standing on the back of George Floyd. Three men. A man that he was already on the floor, you had handcuffed his hands, to his back.
And he was going
see that you still had to. I mean,
it's scary.
So I'll ask you guys.
Back to the issue we raised. Back to earlier on, the system is waiting, because I mean, during the Rodney King, the riots,
in California,
the damage was more serious than this. It went on for a couple of 2 weeks or 10 days. The system is waiting for you guys to wear out. As soon as African Americans and the minority are tired of coming business.
Yeah, and I think what I find the most amusing about it all is that one of the greatest supporters, of this law that seems to be very, high on persecution, is also now running for president, which is Joe Biden.
Okay.
So he was also responsible, for the bill that criminalizes the black, a large part of the black community. Now, like Olumide was just saying, the system is waiting for you to wear yourselves out. So when all this dies down, when all this is over, the protests are over and all that, what happens? Is the status quo going to remain?
I don't think so. And I'll say why I don't think so. Social media projected that image of George dying on the streets of America.
Yeah.
Social media is not going anywhere. There's a roll call of people, of organizations, of individuals who are emblematic of the old system of the United States. And I think the focus will be on those organizations. to see how they approach the next phase going forward. If they don't see any change in them, the people will be back on the streets.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
You figure?
The problem might have dissipated.
You figure?
Yes. Yes. It might have dissipated. But I think the energy is there. If we fast forward a couple of months with the election of Joe Biden and what have you, if that happens, and you get the right people in place, and I think the goodwill of the vast of American people, forget is us just being the blacks and what have you. The goodwill of the American people is like, I think we've been sold a lie. For a very long time, we've been sold a lie. And I think the problem with the people who are headstrong about not embracing the new phase is the fact that it's difficult for them to come to terms with that lie that they were sold. There's a movie called The Birth of the Nation. It underscores everything racist about the United States. The Birth of a Nation.
Okay.
If you watch that movie, it's black and white. Yeah? And it's got, it should be on YouTube somewhere. If you get a chance to watch it, you will understand the mindset of the average white American. The black has been criminalized in front of them. Every time the media shows them an image, it is always a black guy in handcuffs, a black guy sprawled on the floor, blood spatter. Crimes being reported is a black guy. Your movies is a black guy who is the bad guy. Your drug dealer on the street is a black guy. Your lyrics in your rap music glorifies violence. There is a reason. This guy. So all of that narratives I've recounted now stems from that one movie, Birth of a Nation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stems from a Birth of a Nation. So fast forward your police, your KKK guys, Birth of a Nation. Because it is difficult for them to accept. Even with Obama becoming president, it was difficult for them to stomach. One of the first things the Republican caucus did when Obama became president, and it's on record, was we have to stop this guy from succeeding. So, and these are people who have the power to do so. Imagine a guy who's just been given the power. Imagine what he will do. So when Rand Paul was the Speaker of the House, there's a documentary. They had a meeting while Obama was being inaugurated. They were watching it on TV and they were saying it amongst themselves. Mitch McConnell was there, Rand Paul was there. There was another guy there. What's his name? His name fails me now. There were about 4 of them, round table. They were saying it categorically. This guy must not succeed. Why?
Because but then you will have that in any political dispensation. I mean, the opponents would always work against your success.
This had nothing to do with politics. Because if he had, the idea of free healthcare crossed above the board. But for them to be headstrong meant basically this guy does not represent us. The moment you show somebody how to do something,
yes, you've
empowered them. So the moment Obama became a president and you put his imagery up there, do you know just that imagery has empowered so many people? Things that they didn't really put their mind to before, they will start striving for. And that is what the American system is not comfortable with. We've sold you We sold our own a lie. You guys are calling us out on that lie.
Now, Oduola has asked, a question. What is the American dream? Now, this particular question, what is the American dream?
Mm-hmm.
From what, I have seen over the course of the past, few weeks, the videos and stuff and all that,
Mm-hmm.
something has come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into the harbor in New York, what you see is the Statue of Liberty.
Okay. Yeah.
America is supposed to be the land of dreams, liberty, and freedom.
Okay.
But unfortunately, there has been a systemic war against the Black population from the way things have been portrayed to us in recent times, from a lot of videos we can see, and from a lot of things that have happened to the African American in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the funny thing is this: 5% of all the slaves, that were taken from Africa in the transatlantic slave trade landed on the shores of the United States as you know it today.
Okay.
The rest of them were scattered all over the Caribbean, South America.
Yeah.
Now, the average American slave owner worked his slaves to death.
Yeah.
Apparently, only one child was born during the course of that slave trade for the 5% that landed in the United States.
Okay.
So they did not quickly understand that they could multiply their slave holdings by allowing them to multiply.
Okay.
They were working them to death, as opposed to what was happening in the Caribbean and in South America. Okay. Now, could it be a case of that culture of still not being able to see the Black man as human is what has had this trickle-down effect?
Okay.
For all these years.
Okay.
Could that be the case?
Okay. There is a documented part of history which says the first set of Europeans that landed in the United States and the slaves that came in from Africa were all seen as equal. They were indentured slaves. So the guys who came from Europe were mostly indentured slaves. So the moment they walked their freedom off,
Irish.
Exactly. They walked their freedom off, they were given freedom and they could walk. But the slaves could not. So the interaction between the indentured slaves then and the slave on the field meant a certain level of camaraderie. And to forestall the coming together of the indentured white and the African slave, they created this status quo, which is what is existing going forward. And it was the fact that you are one step ahead of the Black guy. So they created a hierarchy. So it was white man, white woman, wealthy, then white man, unwealthy, white woman, unwealthy, and then the African at the bottom. So what then happened was they created a situation where even when you were so worst off, you still felt you were better off than the Negro.
Yeah, so, but even the Negroes had they had categories. They had
they had the house Negro and what have you. Yeah. Now, if you now fast forward now, that is exactly the same thing you have, the same mentality, that mindset, that you have your very wealthy guy, you have your guy in backwater Montgomery, Alabama, who looks at the guy on the street, whether he wears a tie, is a college professor, doesn't care. As long as he's a Black guy, He's
Yeah.
less than I am, which formed
In essence,
the mindset of the KKK.
nothing has changed.
Nothing has changed. And as long as you do not have education in place to correct that anomaly and to state this is why this framework existed, you will continue to have shootings. You will continue to have systemic racism in the workplace. People, looking at each other across the road and having suspicion. It's not just suspicion, it's that ingrained mentality that you are better off than the person you're staring at until you're educated. Elliot Brown, that lady who did that survey, the white black doll.
Yes.
Yes. Summed it up perfectly. When you've been taught over time that this is who you are, these are your rights, whether you consciously or unconsciously demand it.
The right of privilege.
Exactly. Consciously or unconsciously, you just demand it.
Jawad Igila, it's
Yes, sir.
fantastic having you on for this long.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure most people that have watched this would have enjoyed this little discourse. And like we keep saying here, we need to keep the conversation going. We need to keep talking about what's going on. We need to keep thinking of how we can add more value to self and to community, and then try to be able to be more productive towards, the world at large as a people, so that we ourselves, if we treat ourselves with dignity, we can also be treated with dignity.
True.
The case of it is until we engage in protests, until there's violence, before we can pass our messages across. So thank you very much for coming on, and we hope to have you on again soon. And to everybody watching this, say no to racism, say no to rape, say no to violence. Let's all join hands. Let's be cooperative. Let's help each other to grow, and let's make the best out of the situation. COVID-19 still exists. It is still out there. Please protect yourself. Please stay safe. Wear a mask when you go out. Keep your hands to yourself, and you're probably going to be safe. Wishing you all the best. Have a great night, and see you on Sunday. And don't miss the show on Sunday. It's for parents particularly. Education is important. It's something that we're speaking about again tonight. And you need to hear what our panelists have to say on Sunday. Jawad, you have a great night.
You too.
Else, you have a great night, and we hope to see you on Sunday. Good night.
Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.